All right, Dawn Staley gets a new contract. We've got new visitors from the transfer portal from Penn State and South Carolina, Oklahoma. Somebody's going to leave Norman tomorrow with a win in SEC play. We talk about all that and more. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. We are joined by our live producer, Allie Davison. We've had some technical difficulties to start, which she's not super happy about. They're my fault. But we have a great show for you today. I appreciate all of you listening. I appreciate all of you who make Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, guys, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, we were recording this on Friday night. We got a little happy hour edition. I reached out to you guys on social media, asked you what you were doing for happy hour. I hope it's a fun, safe start to the weekend, and we should have a good weekend as well with a lot on tap. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, let's get into today's show. Right off the bat, this was on a Friday news dump type thing. This was a Friday big deal piece of news that came out about South Carolina women's basketball coach Dawn Staley receiving a pretty big deal of a contract. Historic for women's basketball. She got a extension through the 2029-2030 season for a total contract that will be worth over $25.5 million. Now, let me get into the nuts and bolts of this whole thing. First off, love that Jeremiah Donati comes in as the new athletic director, replaces Ray Tanner in December, whenever it was, gets right to work and says, like, what are our key pieces? What do we need to do? What, like, to preserve what we're doing in for not only now in this program and athletic department, but in the future of South Carolina, of not just football, not just baseball. When they went out and got Maneri, you get Lamont Paris, one of the better coaches in basketball, obviously SEC Coach of the Year last year. But without a doubt, the best coach in women's college basketball, Dawn Staley. She's coming off a incredible season. She's coming off an incredible third national championship in a pretty small time she's been at South Carolina. I made this comment in the summer and the fall. And we got so wrapped up with football stuff, we didn't really dive into it. We will at some point this offseason, but you could easily, like, this isn't like a hot take or a big debate or a super takey type of thing. You can easily make the case that Dawn Staley is the best coach of any sport on the collegiate level in the country, just flat out. That's how dominant she's been. Now, this is the comment that Jeremiah Donati said. Dawn Staley is a once-in-a-generation coach who has made a tremendous impact on the University of South Carolina. She has elevated the sport of women's basketball on the national level and here on campus, and I'm excited that she will be representing our university for many years to come. Now, I know that she can be polarizing to an extent because of just some of her willingness to talk about subjects that are, I don't want to say taboo because they're not taboo. It's just, polarizing topics. I love the fact that she's outspoken enough to say her opinion, whether I agree with it or anyone else agrees with it or not. Like that's I will always support that. So I love that for her. I love the fact that she is such a good players coach, and the level of camaraderie and stuff like that she has felt like she's built, not just even with her team, but really in the community of women's basketball. She's been not just an advocate, but very outspoken for growing that game, and it's been really cool to see. But all of that is great. Like, all of the stuff that you're doing for things that are bigger than you, great. We love it. It's also awesome to see someone get and earn something they deserve. And Dawn Staley, whether like in any way you look at it, absolutely deserves this raise. Okay. Here's the thing. So this is the nuts and bolts of the contract. It began immediately following board approval, starts with an annual salary of $4 million because of $500,000 signing bonus and an annual $250,000 escalator, making the total value approximately $25.25 million. Now, this is the way it's set up right now. So from now until April 25th, she's going to make $4 million. Then you talk about the $250,000 escalator because of every single year up until the 2030 season. That means she'll make 4.25, then 4.5, 4.75. By the 2028-2029 calendar year, she will be making $5 million. This is the thing that's most impressive about this to me. I am not a huge fan of always having to say, this is the biggest contract in women's basketball history. It's awesome, and I'm not dismissing that at all. What I am saying to an extent is she has been so dominantly good at her job. It's like, of course, it's the biggest one in women's history because that's how good she's been. She has earned every single penny from that. But like the comparisons to the sport as a whole, man or woman, it's unbelievable to see where she ranks with some of those other teams. The $4 million she's making right now, that would rank 15th in the country, including the men's coaches in college basketball. Okay. It's also something it's outrageous, but not outrageous. That sounds bad. But the $4 million she's going to be making, I think the next closest coach is Kim Mulkey, who makes around 3.3 or 3.4. You think about from a percentage standpoint, her making $600,000, or let's just do a nice round number. If it's 3.25 and she's making $4 million, right? You're making $700,000 more than Kim Mulkey, right? To put that in perspective, you're talking about making almost 20 to 25% more than her right now, right? So, I mean, you don't see that disparity in other sports consistently, right? You see a couple of them like in men's college basketball. It's like, listen, Bill Self makes 9.5, John Calipari makes 8.5. You see it in men's college basketball. It's a pretty steep drop off after that. It is. Let me see here. Tom Izzo is third. He makes 5.7. Right behind him, Bruce Pearl makes 5.7. Rick Barnes, 5.7. Scott Drew, 5.1. I think rounding out the top 10, you see Nate Oates is making $4.5 million. Nate Oates at Alabama is making $4.5 million. That is what Dawn Staley will be making this year, technically, with the signing bonus she's getting at $500,000. But when you start talking about making $5 million a year during this contract, that puts you in the top 8 nationally. Top 7 nationally of even the men's coaches. And then you look at the disparity the difference between some of the other coaches, like you look at college football, it's Kirby Smart. This is the level that she's getting paid. Kirby Smart makes $13.3 million. The next closest stat was 20 at 11.1. You don't see 20% more than the next closest coach, unless it's a coach at the level of a Kirby Smart or at the level of a Bill Self, who's just won a national title at Kansas not that long ago, or Dawn Staley, who has been absolutely dominant and just finished winning her 3rd national title. It's a testament to her and how great of a job she's done. It's a testament to the culture she's built in South Carolina. It's also a testament to what they're trying to build from an entire athletic department standpoint. We talked about this briefly. That's a new shirt. Looks like I have shoulder pads on here. If you talk about this briefly in the fall, they're going to have to talk to Beamer at some point, I'm sure, after the year he had, which was great. You just brought in Paul Maneri, and you had Lamont Paris last year with a phenomenal start to his tenure here in South Carolina. Like, with those 4 coaches across the board, I challenge you to find from a football, baseball, men's basketball, women's basketball, find me 4 better coaches than that, from a resume standpoint, from a historical standpoint, from a current standpoint of how they're performing and their teams are performing. You don't really have a ton, right? Like, you look at the best men's basketball team, it's Auburn. Their football program, baseball program were not great. No offense to our live producer. Bama, women's basketball top 20, but not anywhere close to this level. And baseball is nowhere close to South Carolina is going to be this year either. Anytime you can sit here as a program and say, we have a football team that just won 9 games, or on the door, just knock on the door of winning 10, right? And feel like we could be a top 10 team next year. We have a women's basketball team that is coming off a 3rd national title, We have a men's basketball team that finished in the top 3 or 5, I think, in the SEC last year with the SEC Coach of the Year. Now things are down this year as of now, but there's a ton of upside there with what they did in year one. And then you got a baseball program that has a national championship winning coach. That's a lot of depth to have in the athletic department, and it speaks a lot about how much fun it's going to be across the entire calendar year and across all sports in South Carolina for years and years to come. It makes me very excited to talk about it, very excited to cover it. That's just me. All right, before we go to break, I want to tell you real quick about one of our newest title sponsors, but before we do that, I also want to remind you what's coming up after this. We're going to talk a little bit about the men's basketball game against Oklahoma. We're not going to get bogged down in it. I know it's not a sexy matchup, okay, at all. But it is a big deal because whoever wins that game is going to finally get off the schneid and won't be winless in SEC play after this Saturday. We will also talk about the latest visitor that is coming to town, or at least set a visit to come to town in the very, very near future. It's Harrison Wallace III. He is a receiver from Penn State. But we'll get to all that and more after the break. Before we go to break, want to tell you about our good friends at Prize Picks. You guys heard me talk about these guys yesterday. Heard me talk about them a bunch before. They are some of the best, most cutting edge, and fun, really fun platform to play and gamble on in that arena. Now listen, this is a place you get real money on real sports action. We have over 10 million members and billions in winnings. Prize Picks has changed the game for daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or the regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying football, basketball, and all sorts of other action. It's playoff time for football. We know that. But there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. Here's how it works. All you have to do is pick more or less. More or less. I'll put it in this regard. Instead of even talking about playoff picks for tomorrow, like, do you like C.J. Stroud to go over this amount of passing yards? How about basically, if you were watching the show and you said, hey, is Chris going to mess up the pronunciation of a player's name? Over or under 2.5 times? I would hammer the over for one, but that's how simple it is. More or less, over or under. It's that easy. And as your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's right, 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. Get ready to run your game this football season and beyond. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, all capital letters, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Locked On Gamecocks continues right after this break. All right, welcome back in. We'll keep it a pretty brief show today, but I do want to talk about this quickly because I think it's important. Now, the portal has closed finally. It's officially closed for every team in the country besides Ohio State and Notre Dame. Now, they will have 5 days. Players will have 5 days after their last game on Monday to also enter their name in the portal, try to find a new home. Now, one of the things that gets confusing with this sometimes is you have 5 days after the season to enter your name in the portal. You can stay there for as long as you want to try and find a new home. There are several thousand players that are still in the portal looking for a place to land and eligibility and all that kind of stuff. We're starting to see these new trends where I told you guys about this before. We're starting to see these new trends where you see stuff like, I think I saw this today. There's a former Alabama tight end, Amari Niblack from Texas. He is entering the portal. It's the second straight year he's entering the portal. There were 7 players from Alabama alone that have entered the portal in back-to-back seasons now. I don't know what the total number. I know they had 41 total players enter the portal last year. I don't know how many entered in their final year and are done, but 7 of the 40, so roughly 17.8%, I think. I'll let my live producer run the numbers on that. 7 divided by 41, 7 divided by 40. That is the amount of players that are entering for multiple times. And, you know, it's just it's the portal era. It's the era we're in now. Now, a name that has come up about visiting South Carolina is Penn State wide receiver Harrison Wallace. I think this is interesting for a number of reasons because it's not even just, I know nothing about Harrison Wallace, okay? He had a good year. I will tell you that. 46 catches, 720 yards, 4 touchdowns. 6'1", 200. Led Penn State in receiving yards and receptions this past season. So that's a big deal. It's guys played at a Power 4 level, at a high level for a really good program. Now, you look at the track record of Penn State receivers, and it's a guy they let go of last year, Keandre Lambert-Smith, who left Penn State and went to Auburn. Had a phenomenal year in an offense where he was able to get the ball a little bit more. Say what you want about Peyton Thorne, but he was able to get the ball to him way more than Drew Aller was able to, and had tremendous success. This is a similar type prospect coming from the same school. A year later, led the team in receiving production, and is looking at this. This is what stood out to me most. It was not the production. It was his initial teams that he's interested and he wants to visit. Louisville, North Carolina, Texas A&M. Why does that stand out to me? Throw Louisville aside. I think it's an offense. They're going to throw the ball a lot with Brian Brom. And they've attracted receivers a lot. He will probably go up there and replace a guy like Ja'Cory Brooks, who's the former Alabama guy that went up there and did really, really well there. He's also got to figure out who's going to throw to him because Tyler Shaw won't be there anymore as he's going into the NFL draft. Or Shaw. I don't know. It's like an O-U-G-H. It's like when people spell their like the kid's name like Brayley with like an E-I-G-H, like a cough at the end of it, drives me crazy. Anyway, the other two schools outside of South Carolina, rounding out the top 4, North Carolina and Texas A&M. So what that tells me is he's not just chasing money. A&M, maybe. And I don't know how much room there's available at A&M. We'll get to that in a second. North Carolina, which is a place that has, for now, Bill Belichick as the head coach. One of the interesting things about Bill Belichick is he still has not signed his contract to stay at UNC. Here's another thing. If he decides before July 1st that he wants to go somewhere else, it is January 17th that I'm recording this. If he decides before July 1st that he wants to go back to the NFL, Cowboys job, there's 6 open jobs. I doubt he wants to take the Saints job. 6 open jobs. If he decides he wants to go back, the buyout is only $1 million. That was definitely by design. Now, he has said all the right things. So has his girlfriend. They have said all the right things that they want to stay in Chapel Hill. I think she does because she has like 3 semesters of school left. I don't know. Zing. But I think it's interesting because he wants to either play in that kind of system where it will get you prepared for the pros, or play in a volume system like at Louisville. A&M, I don't think he's going to go to A&M for a number of reasons, but here's the main reason why is because A&M's receiver class that they've signed in this portal has been really good. Like not saying this kid's not good. What I am saying is you went out and got Micah Hudson, former 5-star, which means you had to at least sink over $1 million in NIL money for him. Most likely just that's the going rate, and that's a top 7 player in the portal. We'll get to him in a second. You also went out and got multiple other players in the portal that were, I think you got another top 15 receiver from the portal, and you also got another big name as well. Now they're losing some production. Noah Thomas is going to end up at Georgia. But there are 3 guys you brought in the portal this year to start playing right away. And it's a position you could always use depth in. But like after the top 3, I mean, that's going to cut into your production at the very least, right? Micah Hudson's interesting at Texas A&M because he stepped away from football like for right now. I say all of that to say it feels like you're in good standing if you're South Carolina if you can get him on campus, because they need another receiver. I mean, I like what they already have, to be honest, but they have been open saying that they will go after another receiver. If you can get a receiver like this with proven production, that is not something you have on the roster right now. I love Nick Harbor. I love every other player they have on the current roster from last year coming back. I think there's some great upside, and all of them can be used in so many different varieties and so many different creative ways, just in the passing game, passing skeleton, the way you're orchestrating the passing game, and play design and all that. Like, you can get very creative with what you have. I just think that if you can find a guy that has this level of production at a Power 4 level, it's not someone you would pass up on. Now, we'll see what the NIL situation is like and what he's going to be commanding. But if he can get on campus, I like South Carolina in this situation, just to be honest. I think it's a good I think it's a good fit. He's from Alabama originally, Pike Road, Alabama. Went to Pike Road High School. I'm looking at this right now. He's part of the 2021 recruiting class. You know, here's who you return for Carolina, okay? Nick Harper, Mazia Bennett, Jared Brown, Vidravius Jacobs. I think they're going to get so much out of Jacobs this year. They also signed 6 receivers from the high school ranks: Malik Clark, Jaden Sellers, Brian Rowe, Lex Cyrus, big one, Jordan Gidron, Donovan Murph. Love the upside of all those guys. I don't think you're bringing this in because you're unhappy with your current situation. I think this is more of a thing where it's like, hey, we like what we got here. We do like what we have here. Beamer's been open about that. But if you can go get a guy with proven production and proven experience, you go do it. So we'll see how it plays out. All right. To the surprise of no one, talked way longer than I thought with that. And we're going to close out here with a quick synopsis, preview, however you want to describe it, for the Oklahoma game tomorrow. Before we do, I want to give another quick shout out to one of our other friends and sponsors of today's show. It is FanDuel. I'll give a shout out to FanDuel. Thank you again to our lovely live producer, Allie Davison. You're the best. Listen, from the final whistle to the final, or for the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get up to $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I will tell you right now that on Monday, we'll do a special thing. Maybe even we'll do it on Sunday with our best bets for the national championship game. Again, it's probably knock on wood here. I don't know if this is real wood. It's from IKEA. But we're on a pretty good streak. And our friends at FanDuel have been very generous to us. So I would hope that we can return the favor to you guys and get some free money in your pocket. We went 6-0 in our picks last week during the Texas-Ohio State game. 4-1 and 4-1 in the 2 previous weeks before that. So we're 14-2 in our last 16 bets. Probably need to stop jinxing it, but visit FanDuel. Let's win some money together. FanDuel.com today. All right, let's close out the show with this. Let's get a quick break on the green screen so I know where to put the commercial. This live producer's killing it, guys. Killing it. And let's close out today's episode with this. Okay. Tomorrow's a big deal. I don't want to say it's a must-win, but I will tell you right now, if South Carolina does not win tomorrow, it's going to be very difficult to have any sort of objective and real optimism moving forward for the rest of the season. Okay. And I briefly touched on this the other day. Now, I hate that this game's on the road. It's a game I think you can win. I think it's a game you can win. Okay. I will be honest about that because I don't think Oklahoma's very good. They have looked very bad at the start of the season. Their closest loss is to Texas, who I also don't think is very good. That's just me personally. So let me pull this up real quick. Oklahoma, you're on the roads in Norman. This is a team that was ranked a week ago. They're 13-4 overall, but they're 0-4 in SEC play. There's 3 teams in the SEC right now that are winless. Okay, 3 teams, and it's Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Arkansas. Somebody is going to win this game. I would think. I would have to think. You look at Oklahoma, the way that they have played this year. They got trounced by Bama, lost by 28. Close game at home against A&M, where they only lost by 2. Close game at home to Texas, where they only lost by 4. The problem that they've had more than anything is when they go on the road, which they have seldomly done this season, and it's been pretty embarrassing. I'm sure some of these are neutral site games, but I'm seeing 2 true road games all year, and they lost those games by combined 38 points. Now, again, this game is at home. It's against South Carolina. This is why I think this is a big deal tomorrow and a must-win. On ESPN FPI right now, they've got a 73.5% chance to win for Oklahoma, which is whatever. Here's the thing. You're coming off back-to-back 3-point losses by the same exact score, 66-63. You're coming off 4 straight losses in SEC play. When you've gone on the road, you got trounced by Mississippi State, 35 points, and Vanderbilt by 3. Ironically enough, you've also lost those road games by 38 points, just like Oklahoma. This is a winnable game, and it has to be for a number of reasons. After the Oklahoma game, you have 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 13 games after the Oklahoma game. 13 after the Oklahoma game. 9 of the 13 are against ranked opponents. 9 of the 13. You've got to figure out a way to win this game. This is the slate after Oklahoma. At home against number 5 Florida in a blackout game. Home against 15 Mississippi State. At 23 Georgia. Home against number 11 A&M. At number 8 Kentucky, who's looking for revenge after last year. Home against number 21 Ole Miss. At number 5 Florida. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your next 7 games are against ranked teams, currently ranked teams. You got to figure out a way to get a win here. You got to get a way to figure out a win here. You're going to have a hard time getting people to buy in for the rest of the season. So that is all for today's show. I hope all of you have a fantastic start to your weekend. Like I said, be safe, please. We'll be back tomorrow with a post-game show after the 4 o'clock tip in Norman. Until then, I hope all of you have a fantastic Friday night. Be safe. Go Cox.